the first little stuff up I remember doing. I picked up everyone's knives at the end of the day. I grabbed them all by the handles. I had probably about 8 knives in my hand. And one of the butchers turned around, and because the blades were sticking out, I walked straight into his arm. So I cut him. He pulled the bone and knife out, and he was like, "Give me the knife," and he stabbed me back in the arm. He was like, "That's what happens when you do stupid things like that."
I'm Dani Valent, and this is Dirty Linen, the podcast that takes the issues the hospitality industry finds hard to air in public and shakes them all about. As we stick with mental health for this week of Dirty Linen, it's a real pleasure to have Liam Crawley come and chat to us. Liam's a chef with a really interesting background, and it is that background in the weeds, I guess, that has inspired Liam to create Hospo for Life, an organisation that aims to inform and assist people in hospitality who are dealing with mental health issues. Thank you so much, Liam, for coming and having a chat today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, Dani.
It's so important what you're doing, and I know that we stand beside each other in wanting to help people who are struggling with their mental health in the hospitality industry, and current circumstances are certainly extra challenging for people who are working and perhaps not working as much as they would like in this industry at the moment.
Oh, definitely.
You've had a really intense journey. So do you want to just summarise what brought you to this point in your life?
Yeah, I guess. I have got a very large personal story in my time in the industry, and I mean, it's everything that I've done over the years is why I had a burning urge to create something for the industry, and that with mental health, and be able to support it. It's definitely been an industry that I've loved and hated for a lot of years. I grew up, quite young in South Australia. Going back in the late 90s, it was quite different down there to what it is today. I grew up in a very religious household, which brought a lot of pressures of their own. Didn't really have a very easy time at school. So mental health from being young, really, it started quite early for me, and had quite an impact on my life. And I guess, going through school, and I think, this can be really directed to, say, the youth of the industry, or ones coming into the industry, apprentices even as well. It can be a real battle. I had lots of learning difficulties, and that, which I think, probably 50% chefs do as well. And that's so, going through those, battling through high school was really difficult. I left school really young, and by the time I got out, I was 13 years old, and looking to do work experience for the first time, and get into the restaurant industry.
Had you identified food that young as something that you saw a place for yourself in?
Yeah, well, I guess I always loved food and always helped, at home. And that, used to love Bill Granger's books, and that they were easy to read, loved the pictures and that. So I used to cook a lot of his recipes, and they all used to work out pretty decent. Then I started food tech in high school, and, I had a real flair for it. And that, it'd always be the first to finish, and that everything would be done, packed down. Most of the time I'd cook on my own. I wouldn't cook with a partner either. And that, so I knew it was probably the way for me to get out of school as well, and get into a career.
It must have been so great for you if you had those learning disabilities and people were giving you a hard time. It must have been so great to find something that you were really good at.
Oh, definitely. And, it had its highs and it had its lows. I was very lucky when I started work experience. I started with a franchise. I started with Hog's Breath Cafe. It was a busy restaurant in the Adelaide CBD. And that the chef was German, and he was, I think, when I was out of the kitchen, he was quite full on. And that, I mean, from that, he always, did right by me. He kept it down in the kitchen when I was in there, and they sort of got me through each section of that kitchen to sort of see whether I really liked it or not. And I did. But I guess, from going back and, growing up in a religious family, and it was pretty full on religion, and my parents didn't want me. My mum didn't want me to work late at night because I might miss church, or not be able to attend on the weekends because I'm working in a kitchen. So it wasn't something that they were very supportive about. And didn't really want me to continue.
What religion is it, Liam?
Oh, so it was a tough one. I grew up in a Jehovah's Witness family, and that which has a lot of pressures of its own. And I guess it's what shaped me, and also threw a lot of mental issues at me as well. You grow up. And that you're not allowed to interact with anyone that isn't a Jehovah's Witness. So going to school, I couldn't, chat to any of the other kids at school. You'd get dragged out of class for, Christmas, Easter, birthdays, because you wouldn't celebrate them. We didn't have a TV at home. We also, we weren't allowed to listen to things on the radio. We wouldn't read newspapers and that. So it was a bit more like a cult, really. But we were completely withdrawn from everything out there in society.
That is really intense. So for you to then be going off to Hog's Breath Cafe and interacting with some people very much outside your circle, that must have been a very radical thing to bring to your family.
Yeah, and it was. And once I sort of told them, like, I didn't meet my father until I was going on 11, 12 years old. Met him for the first time. He left when I was only pretty much an infant, and that. So once I started to see him, he wasn't in it. So he was a bit more like, oh, if you want to do what you want to do, just do it. And that. So I remember sitting there one Sunday evening and pulled the phone book out. I was going through the yellow pages, and I was just ringing restaurant after restaurant. About probably my ninth call, I finally got one. Growing up like close to McLaren Vale, down the south of Adelaide. It's quite a long trek to the city. Once Mum was like, oh, sorry, I'm not going to come pick you up at night time. This isn't working for us. That was kind of the end of it. So I managed to get sort of a casual job working for Pizza Hut for a little while till I turned 14. And then at that point, I got myself into an apprenticeship, and, school ended up letting me leave. So I left before year 10. And that. So, yeah, leaving that young's quite, it's a big step to go into the adult world, and, sort of do what you want to do. But I think it was an escape from my childhood as well. So, I was sort of killing two birds with one stone.
And what apprenticeship did you do?
So I went into butchery to start with, and that because that's what was on. I had that on the table. I went into a supermarket, and it was hard being 14 years old, and you've got big tough guys around you and that tough mentality all the time. Being an apprentice, a lot of the just the normal butchers which were working with us, not my manager, he was brilliant. He taught me well. He really looked out for me during my apprenticeship. But as for the others, the culture was like, oh, you're just the apprentice, and that we copped it as apprentices, so you're going to cop it even harder, and that mentality was quite overbearing for me at times. Yeah.
What does copping it mean?
Oh, so you say no to them, and you'll get dragged into the call room, been hung up on meat rails. The first little stuff up I remember doing, I picked up everyone's knives at the end of the day, and I grabbed them all by the handles. I had probably about 8 knives in my hand, and one of the butchers turned around, and because the blades were sticking out, I walked straight into his arm. So I cut him, and that was probably the first one, which I didn't know whether I wanted to go to work the next day. He pulled the boning knife out, and he was like, "Give me the knife," and he stabbed me back in the arm, and he was like, "That's what happens when you do stupid things like that." And so that was the first one, and then by the time I sort of hit my third year, I had a 2IC, which was really rough. He was a bikie, and that loved to pick on you, and sort of he was always very hot, cold. You wouldn't know what mood he was going to be in each day, and I'd split my stomach muscles, and I was on work cover at the time. From we didn't have any like weight restrictions on cartons and things like that at that point, so you'd get in 40-kilo cartons, and there's a 15-year-old kid trying to pick up like heavy cartons like that, like you're not using the right techniques, and that all of a sudden going to the physio. So yeah, he didn't like that. I wasn't going to put the delivery away that day, and took me in the fridge, bailed me up against the wall, and gave me an absolute beating with a steel. and so that was the end of it for him. He lost his job, but yeah, it wasn't pretty for the next few months afterwards.
I mean, must be so hard for you. I mean, you're a kid and you haven't had an easy ride already. So to process that must have been incredibly difficult.
It wasn't easy, and sort of it was tough getting up each day to go to work, and that like some days you'd want to go, some days I remember I used to sit in the car park and be like, do I want to go today? And then I'd be like, you know what, just go to work, keep pushing, keep getting through it. Like you've only got a year and a half left. Like make it count and get it over and done with. And that I think the most enjoyable points were leaving work to go to TAFE for 2 week blocks because you'd get away from everyone for a couple of weeks. It was like a mini holiday.
Wow.
And that so I did all of my TAFE at Regency TAFE, which was a great experience, and I had some great lecturers there which took me under their wing and gave me a bit of a better education than probably what the guys at work were. So it's sort of there was a silver lining to it, and that was a good way to move forward for me.
So you moved forward and you got back into kitchens. And how did things progress for you?
Yeah, so my life changed when I was 20, and I had a few personal things in my life which started to get a little bit sort of more on top of me. Mental health started to have a bit more of an effect, and I started working in restaurants, which I thought were good. And I think this culture still to today is a big one. And alcohol has obviously been a drinking culture has obviously been there, and a drug culture. But being young, being impressionable, having issues from my childhood, it led me into doing just starting with party drugs to start with, and that after work, and then that spiraled out of control all of a sudden, and I ended up becoming addicted to ice and ended up homeless. Which made things even harder to sort of break through. But I think I was really trying to numb the pain of years prior and get through. I worked really hard still, but the biggest problem for me during that period was. And I think sort of trying to get clean, get out of it, and I've seen it across quite a few areas of the industry in Australia still, and you work a job and then your boss goes, oh, you get paid on Thursday, and you're like you're desperate for your pay, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, sorry, we forgot to pay you. And then, oh, we forgot to pay you. So that, the amount of jobs I had to like fight my way through and go, well, it's not worth staying here. They're not going to pay me. And you'd move on to another job and that. So it was a constant vicious cycle for years, for a good couple of years, to not only, battle your own demons and that, plus work in a highly intense job but, trying to, get ahead in life as well. It was quite a difficult point in my life.
So you're using ice and you were homeless, but you were still working. So were you couch surfing and just keeping, it was going from job to job?
Literally couch surfing and job to job. And then I'd move into a share house and be like, yes, finally I'm getting my life together. And I'd be like, I can pay you, I'd pay them a little bit of what I had, and I'd be like, I'll pay you the rest on, Friday when I get paid, or Thursday when I get paid. And then money wouldn't come from work. So then you'd be like, oh, wow, sorry, I can't pay.
So it was just this cycle that you're in.
Yeah, and then the week after you'd be like, oh, I should get my pay by Wednesday. They've said they're going to process it straight away, and then it wouldn't come again. So you'd be kicked out of the house and you'd be back where you started. And that's so, yeah.
How was that for your mental health?
Difficult. Suicidal, and that, like, some days you'd just be like, why am I doing this? Like, what's the point? Why am I still, trying to, not only hold a job, sort of retrain myself in the kitchen from being a butcher for years as well, and battle all those demons all in one. It was just really difficult. And during the early 2000s as well, we had there was a strong culture of drugs as well, and there were quite a few restaurants which, unfortunately, and that they offered drugs instead of money. So it didn't really make it any easier. And that for, not only employees working within these venues, but, trying to move on and get out of it as well. It was really, really difficult.
Well, it's so hard. I mean, what was the turning point? Because I mean, this isn't your life now. So was it one thing, or was it a slog along a long pathway? Like, how did you turn the corner?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was. I've got a lovely missus, and we've got a 13-year-old son now. So that sort of helped, a little bit to, start turning my life around.
So she was with you through all this?
No, afterwards. So she came in afterwards, and that once I started getting things back to normal, and getting my life back together again. So it's sort of that was a big help. But I think I found other avenues to help myself, and I guess it comes back again to Hospo for Life. Is if there were services back then which we could have relied on, or called, or they were there, we didn't have the mental health support of what we have now. And it's, there's a lot more awareness around mental health now, especially in hospitality. So I guess it was just a lot of perseverance. And, I found myself going through lots of jobs for a while, and that until I finally found a spot which, I found my niche. I eventually moved over to Sydney, and that for 12 months, and started to spread my wings through a couple of restaurants in Sydney here, and which went really, really well. I was head chef of a really nice one down in Newtown and Neutral Bay as well. And that gave me sort of a good step forward, and that worked with some brilliant chefs as well along the way. And knew that moving to Sydney was probably the best step to progress my career. So I packed the family up and decided to move over here permanently. And I guess that's where things started to really, I came into my own once I moved to Sydney. Not knowing too many people, it was tough. Moving to Sydney alone, not really knowing anyone still, no family here either for anybody, but we still decided to do it. And it was I think the turning point for me, I was moving over here for a job. That job fell through. I got offered a significantly lower paid role at a busy hotel in Coogee. Which had, still had its standard, problems, but there were other bigger issues and health and safety issues at that point in time. And I had a chef turn around to me after I approached the team and said, "Look, this needs to change. Like, we can't keep going on like this. It's not good for the team." And they said, "Well, if you don't like it, you can leave." And I was like, "Wow, if that's the way you're going to go about it." So I did, and I decided to start a business 7 years ago.
Wow. But I mean, obviously you were feeling in a much stronger place personally to be able to notice that something wasn't right and that you weren't prepared to stand for it. You were going to, you were going to take a position and stick to it.
Yeah, big time. And it was like, if you're going to push someone out the door for, trying to better the workplace, not just for yourself, but for everyone in the whole team. It was a big team. There's about 20 of us. And that, like, what are we doing it for, and you kind of expect that from your management team to, support, your ideas, especially in the position that I was in as well. Like, I would have expected maybe a little bit more respect in that regard, but it just wasn't there. So I guess it's we decided to start a catering business. I began a brand called Dinner with Liam at Home. And we started small. We started on Instagram. It was, was it tough? Yeah, it was. Like, did I put my house in jeopardy? Yes, I did. And we persevered, and we carried on. And I tell you what, after those 7 years, it's really, it's come to where it's got to. We rebranded 4 years ago into DWL Hospitality, which was absolutely amazing. I developed a juice bar, which was turned into 13 franchises over 2 years. So that sort of gave us a really solid hold on where we were going and where the business was going to place itself as well. So yeah, it was really, really good.
So, Liam, I just want to dig into it a little bit more because, I mean, that is a pretty incredible transition from an ice addict who is couch surfing and just going from job to job to a guy who's starting a business, working hard to make it succeed, and then getting a juice bar concept with some franchise off the ground. I mean, that is pretty incredible. And I know these stories are never simple, and that you probably can't point to one thing. But you've spoken about moving to Sydney, so I guess that's that fresh start aspect. Working for having some really good people to mentor you, finding the love of a good woman, which can never be underestimated. I guess there's also a bit of maturity there, just as you grow up and get a bit of perspective. But I mean, are these the kinds of things we're talking about, or is there something else that you can point to that really made a difference in your trajectory?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, having you said it before, like mentors, and that are massive. And that, like, it doesn't matter whether you're an apprentice, whether you're a chef, whether you've been in the industry for, like, 40 years. Having a mentor, or having, like, at least a couple of close friends which, support your ambition and support your dream, and what you're trying to achieve. It makes a huge difference. Like, going from, creating a juice bar into 13 franchise stores was, that wasn't a simple feat either. But I've got a great repertoire, and I'm very good at development. I'm very good at conceptualizing projects for people, and it's worked. Like I was the head chef and developer of Good Fat avocado pop up a couple of years ago, which went absolute gangbusters around Australia and worldwide. So it's you kind of come through with those things, and I guess when you're passionate about something, I always had that passion, but I always had these stepping stones in between, which always either held me back or restricted me from doing what I wanted to do. So to finally get out and have that freedom to do what you want to do, it's a great feeling. Definitely over the last couple of years across our private dining, we expanded that into Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth. I've been honoured to have literally some of the best chefs in Australia work for me, which have gone, we'll help you, Liam, which says a lot about our business. And all of our staff have been with us for since the beginning. Like, we've had obviously newbies, but everyone's been with us for 7 years. So we've built a really strong family culture around my business as well. So everyone's been really supportive of one another, which it creates a pillar of strength for everyone, not only in my team and that, but for yourself as well, and for them, to not only support yourself but support them at the same time. So that's been an absolute amazing. I feel like that's what's got us to where we've got. It hasn't just been myself. I couldn't thank my whole team enough, and that for the support that they've given us over 7 years either.
I guess, when you've come up through the school of hard knocks, there's a couple of roads that people tend to go on. It's the one where you just, like those butchers did, where they just give as hard as they got. And then there's the other way where you realise that that's perhaps not a good way to help someone up in their career. So what sort of leader are you?
Yeah, like I'm strong and I'm dynamic, and that, like, but there's the right way and the wrong way of going about things. And I guess as chefs, we're not born to teach people, or we're not probably born to be leaders either. And that, so everyone has to sort of fit into that role somewhere in their career. But I guess it's I think one thing that I've learned, and it has taken a lot to learn, like, what works and what doesn't work, and that's to be compassionate of everyone's needs and everyone's wants. If someone's going to speak to you, whether it's in the kitchen, front of house, and that, take the time to listen to them, and hear what they've got to say, because I think there's been across the hospitality industry, which makes it hard, I know, especially for chefs, and chefs that don't get listened to. They've got great ideas, and sometimes you might go, yeah, good on you, and that, but like, never discount someone's ideas that might not benefit what you're actually doing within your team. And I think that's a better way of leadership, because everyone then they've had a say. Everyone's able to speak their mind freely, which then makes it easier for people to open up about problems if they're having any problems, and you're approachable. And I think if the more approachable you are as a leader, the better it is, not only for yourself but your whole business, and your strategy in business as well.
And I think the difference that it can make for someone to feel like they've been heard and that their idea has helped the business along, that can be so powerful for someone. That could just really come at the right time for someone, couldn't it?
Yeah, and involving everyone. Like, one thing that we've done well is involve everyone in our success over the last 7 years. I could take all the credit for myself, but I'd be doing everyone else an injustice because they've put in just as much hard work as what I have, into my business. So it's really appreciating every single member of your team and what they do for you. We've had a couple of people in our team which have struggled mentally over the last few years. And it could have got quite rough at some point, but being a listening ear and being supportive still and being compassionate, not just throwing in the towel and going, you know what, get out of here, like, I don't want to hear it, and that, but actually looking at it from their perspective on how they're feeling, and that makes a big difference. And you can overcome those hurdles. Then you can overcome those barriers. No one has to leave, no one has to get fired, and that, but you sort of, once everybody understands that we're here to support you as well, it makes a huge difference to everybody, and whatever they're going through, and it makes a big difference for them as well.
Well, I guess it's a testament to the trust that you've got in your team that you've been able to launch Hospo for Life about a year ago and spend so much time building something big and new. So tell us about Hospo for Life.
Yeah, so when I launched Hospo for Life, just over 12 months ago, the idea for an industry-specific mental health service came about after a number of past colleagues, some that were still close friends, suicided within a matter of weeks.
Wow.
I was quite overwhelmed.
That's so awful.
Yeah, and it was quite overwhelming, as well, and all of this was hitting home to me about what I'd felt over the years as well, and what could we do, like what could have I done to at least stop one of them from happening, and so I knew going through all of that and learning a lot about so many other people's journeys as well over the years and the problems that they battle and the demons that they fight, at work. I started putting it all together and searching for a solution to start tackling mental health problems across the industry and across the whole of Australia. I didn't want to go out there with a campaign about awareness and talking about it, and that I wanted to actually find a realistic solution that people can finally use, and it's something that's just dedicated to the hospitality industry, and that. So it was a gamble. I put a lot of my savings into setting everything up, and we affiliated ourselves with Altius Group, who have been a major player in the corporate mental health space. And I mean, by doing that, it's opened up a network now for the industry to, not have a counsellor at the other end, but actually have an accredited psychologist to be able to support them whenever they need it. And we're managing to do this. We pay for those appointments ourselves, and that through Hospo for Life, and they're free of charge to those in the industry, and they're available 24/7. And I thought, well, a lot of chefs and hospitality staff, they can't go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist during the day because they're stuck at work. And that first step for someone with mental health problems is always the most difficult step. And that, whether it's financial, whether it's, not being able to take the time off work, or the boss goes, oh, I'm sorry, it was your day off on Thursday and you've already got something planned to go and see someone. And then they go, sorry, we need you at work today because someone's sick. So you go to work and you put yourself last all the time. And I wanted to create a service that all of a sudden people can start putting themselves first. So by doing that, we supply that session free of charge, and then subsequent appointments can be made with the same psychologist, and that which Altius tick off through their side of things, which is free as well.
So Altius is like a sort of health agency, is it? They've got a team of different therapists that's available mostly to corporates, but then you've partnered with them to offer some services that are specifically targeted to people in hospitality. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, definitely, and as I say, they're all trained psychologists, so it's it's a real solid service for our hospitality workers.
Do you think there's something that a psychologist that's tuned into the hospitality industry might do or ask or understand that would be different to the general population?
Yeah, I guess so, and that, but the I think the best part about it is everyone's in a different field. So if say you've got someone that's been in the industry for years, their relationships are breaking down at home, and that's the core problem of their mental health issues. That can be dealt with by someone that's specialised in that area, and that whether it's lifestyle, whether it's drug counselling, whether it's alcohol or other mental health problems associated, there's someone in the right area to be able to support that. So you're not just seeing someone which is going to ask you a broad amount of questions, which about how you're feeling, and slowly getting to the bottom of it. Like, those issues can be dealt with straight away and tackled from the word go, which I think makes it a lot stronger at the end of the day for hospitality workers, because a lot of us haven't got time, and everyone's always looking for a quick fix, and I guess it just makes it a lot quicker for people to get that help that they need. I guess the hardest part recently with COVID, when COVID hit and hospitality workers losing their jobs, we were lucky enough to really step up and support the industry's frontline during that, and that sort of hasn't happened for a long time in the industry. So yeah, I'm really happy with what Altius provide. They've been absolutely amazing.
So anyone who's in hospitality can get in touch with Hospo for Life at any time and access some of this support. That's right?
Yeah, they sure can. They sure can.
So Liam, what should they do? Where do they go?
Well, all they need to do is go to our website, which is www.hospoforlife.com.au, and they can get in touch straight away. They can get in touch with us through social media as well, through Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and we'll get them set up. We're just about to launch our app. Which is another big step forward for Hospo for Life, which will make things a lot easier for hospitality workers to go direct and make those appointments for themselves. So the Hospo for Life app, which is powered by Altius, it contains specifics to the mental health needs of hospitality workers, and different support tools, health tracking, recipes, and it also, so as I said, it has a direct link which can link them straight to a psychologist when they need it. So it's a great platform for people to use, and if they want to do it have that confidentiality behind it as well, because they might be worried someone might say something, and that they've got that avenue to keep it private as well. So I think it's the app's going to be a great step forward for the industry. The goal tracker in it, I mean, you can punch into all sorts of different categories, how you feel on a scale. You can set notification times, so it can send you back notifications during the day on different areas, which can help you in those areas which you're suffering mentally. So it's a very all-round, well-rounded app to support people, which 90% of us have got our phones glued to our hands these days. So I mean, it's putting control back into your hands.
So, Liam, I know that one of the things you're really big on is having an interest or a hobby, and you do something that's pretty cool and unusual in your spare time. Tell us what you do.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of things, Danny. I've been a keen musician for years, and that which I mean for stress and that and all sorts of even mental health problems, and that music is very soothing, and it's very relaxing. So I spend my time doing that whenever I'm feeling stressed or need a bit of time out, and some relaxation. I find it works really really well. Last year I decided to get into a field which another one which I didn't think that I'd be able to do, and thought it's probably not smart enough to do it, and I became a pilot. So in my spare time now, that's I spend my time in aviation, and flying as much as I can, which is another great stress relief as well, and going up in the air.
That's so amazing. I cannot help but see that boy with the yellow pages flicking through it and calling all the restaurants and all that long journey that you had ahead of you. And I'm just so happy that you get to fly and teach and mentor and just spread good things to the industry that you knew you wanted to be in from when you were just a little boy. So Liam, I think your story is amazing, and I think Hospo for Life is such a credit to you. I'm sure it's already helped people and it will continue to. Thank you so much for what you do, and thanks for having a chat to Dirty Linen today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, Dani.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.